I have a very mixed reaction to BLM because, on the one hand, the idea of BLM resonates with me and has from the beginning. My family has a long standing understanding that there is a chronic problem for people of African descent in America, and that demands a solution. And so I also believe that Black lives are chronically undervalued in the US, and that is something that can change and must change.
Mm.
So at the level of the label, I'm on board. But at the level of what I discover as I try to get closer to BLM, I'm frequently horrified by some of the things that the organization, at least, seems to be about. And it sounds like your chapter is one where, frankly, I would have been welcome and I might have felt at home. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
You would have had a seat right next to me if you wanted. Um, I would say, and I tell people this because, and I guess we'll get to that later, but I did kind of publicly, in a way, kind of announce my that I'm distancing, I guess you can say, myself away from the National BLM of 2021. But I will tell you this, I feel like there's been phases of BLM. There's like, we were in the phase, I believe, from like 2013 to about 2017 of its most like organic state, like when it was about anti-police brutality, which I think any American should be for because it benefits everyone. And and then there was 2018 was a particular time. I think that was like phase two of it, of me even looking at it when I was at the last year of leading my BLM. I started looking at the national BLM and I was just kind of like, something's off. But I internally was questioning it. I wasn't outwardly like saying like, let's get in front of this because it wasn't really peaking, but just something was kind of off. This was when Robin DiAngelo came out with her book White Fragility, and this was when a lot of other things were happening. And I saw that the organization's objectives started to get ambiguous and kind of vague. And then also the white people participating who just came in with good intentions of just like, we want to learn, we want to listen, we want to help. And it seemed very organic. It felt like, at least in our organization and other organizations, that I was treated like a peer at that point. To 2018, I felt like, in a sense, that people were selling books and lectures and seminars and things of that nature to say it's not, being good intentions not good enough. Like, you have to showcase how, in a way, show off how anti-racist you can get. And it became a performative allyship at that point where people were more so invested in BLM to um, perform allyship rather than to do it, to act like they weren't a part of the problem than fixing the actual problem.
That's
And then,
fascinating. So it sounds
yeah,
like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it
no,
sounds like you had an organization built around what seemed intuitively meaningful and worth pursuing locally, and it was overwhelmed by a perspective on racism and anti-racism that was being sold by big names at a national scale that transformed your organization away from your what sounds like very reasonable intentions and into a movement in which effectively whites were forced to show off and to one up each other in order to remain in the good graces of the organization.
yeah. I want to make a point though with, I'm not to say that that happened with every single white person that they became this moral monster or something like that. No, I would say I was just seeing it at a national level with like just seeing protests and things of that nature, and just like even on social media, just how I felt like it was a performance art piece for people to post an Instagram photo of their arm around a black person and being like, I'm like, is that for you or for them? But for my organization, I was pretty tight knit with stuff. Like, I had people, I had a mission. I said we invite all creeds, all races. This is for respectful and safe space. And I mean, I had it a very clear thing to where you had to sign it, and if you did not abide by this went rogue, if on social media you were creating hostile environments within your post or whatever, you're out.
So you had a code of honor of sorts that
Yeah,
people had to sign.
yeah, people had to sign it, and I kept it on file, and I gave them a thing. Like it was to keep everyone accountable. And this is the bar it's set, and you need to stay at this bar, because if you're not, you are going to veer off the direction and the path that we're for. But just to pick up on the phases, so the last phase now, with 2019 to now with Black Lives Matter, I feel like with the blessing of getting a lot of funds and getting a lot of attention, that can actually be at a disservice. And I think Black Lives Matter, there were so many businesses after 2018 that poured into Black Lives Matter. And then those people kind of gained control of what was happening. That the 3 Black women, I don't feel like had much of a voice anymore, that the money had the voice. And that I feel like BLM became more of a marketing brand. It was a way for businesses to buy in, to showcase how racially tolerant they are. Like Netflix putting BLM up or whatever. I'm like, for me, I could see through it. I'm like, I don't think you really care. I think you're just trying to save your business. And like, it's almost like, I'm not going to get like biblical, but it's almost in the sense of, putting blood on your door and like the ghost coming by, and like, I don't know what's going on, I don't understand it, but this, don't come in here. It was kind of like just a safety net, safety guard. See, BLM, we can't be racist. And I think that's the phase we're in. But the thing is, people aren't really outwardly talking about this, but there's been at least 10 to 15 other Black Lives Matter chapters that started when I started, and started in 2014, that have come out. And I believe it was a New York Times piece, I'm not sure, but there's like 10 Black Lives Matter chapters who called out the national BLM and said, you guys have millions of dollars and you're not helping any of the chapters. There's still people homeless, there's people hungry, we want funds poured into schools for Black children, minority children, and you guys are hoarding the money. Why are you hoarding it? Like, where is it? Where's the leadership? Why aren't these steps happening that you said was going to happen 6 years ago? Like, people were calling them out. And of course, that's not really shown on social media. It's the antithesis to what I believe BLM was wanting to be. But now I don't recognize this BLM. Like, so I can't, in good faith, attach myself to it anymore, into the national BLM. But I do support grassroots. They are also very frustrated because they believe in the original idea of BLM. And it's almost like they don't, and I've had these discussions with so many people who are not for BLM at all. And I will have these talks with them. And they're like, you know what, that's awesome that these people are doing great work, but why don't they just change their name? Like, if they are so like disgusted what's happening right now, I'm like, when you've done something for 6 years and you've done a lot and you poured all of yourself in it, and then, people on the tail end come and try to make it something that is not, you're trying to fight for the originality of what it's for. And maybe it is a losing game, but for me, all I can do is my work be separate. But when I do see people online, talking about BLM, they're all Marxists, they're all socialists, they're all communist. I'm like, oh, really? All of them? Like, a few people say it and then everyone says that's everybody. But then on the same end, they wouldn't want to be generalized by what they believe in either. So I try to be a bridge, I guess, because even though I might go to a BLM protest as a journalist, as someone like to report about what's happening, but I haven't done like, BLM work since the end of 2018, but I do champion the grassroots that are still out there feeding people, doing all the things that they can do that you'll never know about because they're not in it for the clout. They don't care about the attention. they're doing it because they care about Black lives and they care about what's going on in America. And they cannot stand it when they see other BLMs, and I believe it was in Washington, D.C., where they're telling white people to put their hands up and say, if you don't, you're white supremacist. And the funny thing is, most of those people were white.
Right.
So I actually called that out on Twitter. I said, if the National BLM, if you don't denounce this behavior, you are tainting your organization. And the people who did this, majority of them were white. So you guys don't care about Black lives at all. Because when this comes out in the articles and they see a BLM told white people to put their hands up or the white supremacists, no one's going to think, I wonder if they're white. No, they're going to assume, of course, that they were Black. And they actually, majority of them weren't.
Yes, this is a pattern I have seen as well many times, that there is this large number of white people. Some of them, I'm sure, think they're doing the right thing, maybe most of them, but it's very destructive, and the bill doesn't necessarily go to them. There are a couple points I wanted to make just before they get lost here. Your point about businesses putting up Black Lives Matter signs and things. My wife, Heather, calls that a "don't hurt me" wall, right? And we see them all over the place in Portland here. And really, once you start seeing them that way, it changes your understanding of what's going on. You know that power is being wielded, right? And anyway, it's very important not to take those signs at their word. Some of them may mean what they say, and some of them do not mean what they say. They're really about fear, and it's not healthy.